Hey guys and gals, it's Nancy and Ritter, the girl in back of the screen, and you're watching Sit Down by the Fire with Aaron.
Why, hello, everybody. This is Eric Virthaler, host of Sit Down by the Fire. I'm here with my next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Michael Shields, and I'm an actor in several horror movies. And just want to say thank you for having me on.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Of course, anytime. And I definitely want to thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, how about that? You take my audience back to the beginning. So, what exactly got you started on your journey?
Um, I moved out to Vegas 30 plus years ago and just been kind of doing my thing here. I was a wedding photographer for many years, and um, Tom Devlin, who was on the TV show Face Off, he had created this character called Teddy Told Me To. And, we went out to his museum one day, got to meet him, and became friends. And we started acting in his haunts he would have every year. And one year he goes, "Yeah, Michael, I got something special for you this year." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "I want you to play Teddy." I'm like, "Cool." And so during that hunt season, I was playing Teddy and everything. And toward the end of it, he goes, "By the way, we're going to make the Teddy Told Me To movie." I was like, "That's very cool. Can I please be in it?" He's like, "Oh, you're Teddy." And originally they had a different script completely written, and they changed it around and rewrote the whole story so I could be Teddy. And like you said, it just took off from there. And I had an absolute blast filming that. It was my first time ever truly acting. And since then, we've done, several other pictures together. But Teddy, like I said, was the first one. And, you know, like he started on that TV show Face Off and he went for that character. And people for years kept asking, "When are you going to make this movie? When are you going to make this movie?" And he finally decided to. And this was his directorial debut. So that was also really neat.
Awesome. And as the saying goes, the rest is history.
That's correct.
Yeah. And so have you always been a fan of horror films?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ever since I was a little kid, I've absolutely loved them. One of my earliest memories, and I'm not making this up, I was somewhere between 2 and 3. Mom and dad went out one night and left my brother and sister, to babysit me. And I'm running around the house like a typical, little kid, just going crazy. And they were watching the original Godzilla. Well, I went running by and Godzilla was on the screen and I just stopped and I was like, "What is this?" And from that moment on, I had just fallen in love with anything, sci-fi horror like that. And, ever since then, to this day, I still watch, just about every horror movie I can get a hold of. So I'm a big fan of it.
So, so that's actually really cool about how you mentioned about Godzilla because I actually am a pretty big Godzilla fan too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I love Godzilla and basically all the kaiju movies that came out, especially back in the day, the cheesy rubber suits and everything like that, the Gamers, Godzillas, Yongari, just any of them. And, there are some that are so horrible that you don't even want to sit there and watch them, but you have to, you know. But yeah, I absolutely love them. And even some of the modern stuff like Pacific Rim, that was really cool. So, yep, big fan of them.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming that you have seen the recent MonsterVerse films, right?
Yeah.
And what were your thoughts on those?
Um, when you're saying MonsterVerse, exactly which ones are you talking about?
Like Godzilla 2014,
Oh,
Godzilla
okay.
King of the Monsters, Godzilla
Okay.
vs.
Yeah.
Kong, and so on and so forth.
The American Godzillas, other than that crappy 1998 one. Um,
Yep.
no, I absolutely love those. I think they're great. And Godzilla minus one perhaps is the greatest Godzilla movie ever made.
Oh,
I
absolutely so.
yeah, I mean, especially on that budget that they had. It's, I think $10 million, which is nothing for a movie anymore. And it just blew me away. And I watched it and watched it. And I watched the black and white version. I watched, I've seen it probably 5, 6 times already. I'll just turn it on and sit there and watch it again. And I'm really excited for the new one to come out.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I mean, yeah, and I mean, knowing that, I think it either got nominated or it won an Oscar,
Yeah,
like for best visual effects. And yeah, I mean, for its budget, it definitely was very well deserved. And I'll go as far as saying that I think that it deserved to have been nominated for best, well, like for best picture too.
yeah. And one of the things that really made it enjoyable for me is the actual human characters in the movie had some depth, and you actually started caring about them somewhat, because most of the time the human characters are either a comic relief or just annoying, in like especially the old Toho movies. And but this one, you had the fighter or the kamikaze who did not want to kamikaze himself, and he kept feeling guilty, and there was all that guilt and everything, and it just made it that much more of a better movie.
Certainly so, and yeah, and I got so tired of hearing that about hearing that tired argument saying that, oh, Godzilla movies and just kaiju movies and monster movies in general, excuse me. I got so tired of people saying, oh, well, since it's a monster movie that you can't have compelling human characters. I'm like, that's so not true because Jurassic Park had compelling human characters. The original
Yeah,
Japanese Godzilla had compelling characters. Even Godzilla minus one did.
yeah. And like I said, you will get into some of the later Toho ones in the 70s. The human characters were, like I said, almost comic relief, and you had no, you were sitting there hoping that Godzilla would just go ahead and step on them and get them out of the way. But
Yeah, exactly. And there have been people who have said that, well, maybe they should make a Godzilla movie where it's only just the monsters and there's no human characters. Wow. I do understand where they're coming from, but it's just that, if they do that, knowing that they won't have any human actors, that with all these American ones, they have some big names attached to it, like Millie Bobby Brown and so on and so forth. So it might be harder to sell it to non-Godzilla fans. And on
yeah,
top of that, if they do that, it definitely is gonna amp up the budget, especially considering the after when I took film history in college. I mean, even just a few seconds of CGI definitely can amp up the budget, which is how that I'm curious about how the filmmakers of Godzilla minus one were able to pull it off like with the budget that they had. And so I mean it's a cool idea. I would not be against it. It's just on a practical level might be kind of hard to pull off.
yeah. And if you don't have any human characters, the majority of people out there are not going to want to connect to it at all. Therefore, they're not going to watch it. You know, and it's not like that you can actually have Godzilla and Megaris and all these other monsters sitting there talking to them. Like they actually had one back in the 70s where it was a little boy's imagination, and the monsters actually physically spoke to each other in, obviously I watched the dub, so it was an English version. And that was one of the worst damn Godzilla movies ever made, you know. And it's because of that fact that they were trying to they humanized the monsters themselves by letting them speak. And it's going to be very hard to sit there and tell a true storyline or anything like that without the human element.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident I know which Godzilla movie you're talking about. It's definitely from the Showa era.
Yeah,
I think it was Godzilla versus Gigan, I believe.
no, no, it wasn't Gigan.
That was that one.
I'm not going to remember it right now either, but because it's one of those that it's one of the few that if it's on, I'll sit there and go, no, I'm not watching this. But I've just kind of blocked the name out right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, going to the Showa era, I mean, there definitely were some gems, such as the original movie, but There were some cringy ones, I'm not gonna lie,
Oh yeah.
especially I think it's Godzilla versus Monster Zero, like where you have Godzilla doing the victory dance. Like,
Yeah.
who can take that seriously?
Oh, I know. Or the flying drop kick, or
Yeah.
yeah. And you want to get into some insane ones, you start watching some of the Gamera movies, and Gamera is doing gymnastics on a parallel bar, and so
And obviously when they made Godzilla versus Megagyrus, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. It's
yeah,
just there are multiple ways to pronounce it. I'm really surprised because that one was made in the 2000s when they were taking it a little bit more seriously. And there's that part where Godzilla does a full-on body slam,
hmm
like that just screams something right out of the Showa era when it more so was trying to have a serious tone. Like, who could
yeah,
take that seriously if Godzilla just doing a full-on body slam?
yeah. One of the other ones from that I always thought was pretty good was Godzilla 2000. And that's the one where the dad and daughter are basically Godzilla investigators, and
Yep.
the newspaper or I don't even know if she was newspaper, but she was a reporter and tagged along with them. And I always thought that one was a pretty good one too.
Yeah, and but yeah, that's one that I definitely do have a lot of childhood nostalgia with because Godzilla 2000 like was one of the ones I would watch the most on TV. And yeah, and just to be honest, out of all the Godzilla designs, out of all of the Godzilla roars, definitely the Godzilla 2001 probably is going to be my favorite one.
That one is very good. You know, and as far as favorites, going back to Godzilla -1, the atomic blast on that one out of the mouth. Oh my God, that was the greatest atomic blast ever. So
Oh, certainly.
yeah, because some of them just were funny, and I remember a couple of them where they would curve. I think that one was Destroy All Monsters, and Godzilla shows up in New York, and he's going after the United Nations building, and he breathes, and it makes an arc. I'm like, how is that possible? You know, I mean, I don't understand all the physics behind Godzilla, but still, that one just made no sense. But I'm like, yeah. So,
Yeah, well, I guess if you really want to be technical about it, I mean, I'm by no means a physicist, but there was one time when I just got curious, and then I then asked a scientist who I know. I was like, "Hey, so would it ever be possible if Godzilla ever could exist in the first place, or at least something like Godzilla?" And from what I understand, they were saying that because of Godzilla's mass, that Godzilla actually like would collapse under his own mass.
yeah,
And man, dinosaurs were able to do it is because oxygen levels like were different at that time
right.
compared to what they are now. And on top of that, dinosaurs had hollow bones. But nowadays, Godzilla could never happen nowadays. But hey, but obviously, audiences definitely are willing to suspend their disbelief about that. But there's just some things that audiences can't suspend their disbelief about because it obviously wouldn't be a Godzilla movie if you just can't have Godzilla in it because Godzilla can't happen in real life.
Right.
But yeah,
And
but as far as like the whole, the like flying with like his tail doing the balance, like Godzilla versus Megalon. Yeah.
yeah, and you know, there are so many movies that you have to put, your true understanding of the world and how it works behind you just to sit there and enjoy the movie. For example, to this day, I don't understand how skeletons in movies can, move. They have no muscle, no nothing. They should not stay attached, you know. But I remember like Jason and the Argonauts back in the day, and they had that Ray Harryhausen doing the stop motion effects. And the first time I'm watching that as a kid, I'm sitting there going, again, how can a skeleton swing a sword? You know, and you have to put that, disbelief back of your head and just enjoy the movie, you know. And so, yeah, I know that there's truly no way that Godzilla could exist in this world because the oxygen levels were so much higher back then,
Yep.
or when the dinosaurs were around. So that's why the massive creatures could do it. A blue whale can exist because it's in water. There's no way a blue whale, something that size, could exist on land here in this modern time.
Certainly so. And on top of that, from what I understand, it's because I even know some paleontologists. But yeah, they have even said that yeah, Jurassic Park, as it was shown in the movie, that there's no way that that could ever happen too. But at the same time, if you didn't have dinosaurs in it, then you obviously wouldn't have a movie in the first place.
Exactly. So, so yeah, like I said, it's just the magic of disbelief and putting it behind you. I mean, there are some movies where something will drive me insane because it should not, be allowed to work or whatever. And, I will sit there and, it's very rare that I will start watching a movie and just turn it off because it's just, I can't get behind it. I will watch any and every damn bad thing I can. Like the other night, I watched Crack-Coon. And yeah. And, my wife sat there and kept saying, I don't want to watch this. So she was gone. And I was like, oh, perfect night to watch it. It was absolutely, stupid. But I sat there and made it through the whole movie. I laughed. It was not great in any way whatsoever, but I enjoyed it. So those kind, the bad movies I will watch and enjoy. Um, the last one I actually just turned off. I was like, I cannot get behind this at all. Is that Skinamarink? And it just there was no action and everything. I even started fast forwarding and finally just sat there and said, no, I can't do this because it just never caught my attention.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some movies, such as what you mentioned, like about Crack Coon.
Yeah.
It's like with the title alone, you know exactly what you're getting yourself
Oh
into,
yeah.
and then when you watch the movie, you get exactly what you're promised. But yeah, a movie like Crack Coon definitely shouldn't be trying to be like the next Citizen Kane.
No.
You know, it's like when you order a pepperoni pizza, you know exactly what you're gonna get, and it's the exact same thing like with movies like Crack-a-Coon. And that even was a very common criticism I heard of about the first Winnie the Pooh horror movie because people were saying, with it being a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, it's taking itself way too seriously because
Yeah.
who could take that seriously about a killer Winnie the Pooh? And yeah, and then when they made the second movie, since that they had Winnie the Pooh holding a flaming chainsaw, I feel like that it's pretty evident that they're taking it less seriously now.
Yeah. And obviously how we've connected is I reach out to people on TikTok, about the Teddy movie to watch it. Well, I reached out to one gentleman and he's like, oh, I made a movie. I'm like, cool. And he made this movie when he was in college and it's called The Mantis and it's on YouTube. And it's a parody of the 1950s sci-fi movies. But he understood that he was not making a great movie. He understood that it was going to be a fun parody. And, it's an hour long. And I watched that. And, when the guy transforms to a mantis, it's just a rubber, head and hands. But, they broke the fourth wall. One of the cops, channeled Curly from the Three Stooges many a times. And, that was actually enjoyable. Even though it was a college film, he knew what he was doing. He knew he was making fun of some of the movies and himself. And it was, great because of that. And that's because he did not take himself too serious. Just like in Teddy, we were not going to make the scariest movie ever made. It's more of a love letter to old movies that we all grew up in loving and, the 80s and that kind of stuff. And we understood the fact that, we're not going to be super, super serious, and that's part of why I think that works is because, we did not try to do something so, highbrow and anything like that.
Yeah, and especially when you're making a movie that's that low of a budget, I mean, you might as well should just fully embrace it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there's just something really funny about like breaking the fourth wall. It's just, it's hard to pinpoint it exactly what makes it so funny, but but yeah, and there even are some times where it even catches you completely off guard about how they break the fourth wall. Like, I don't know if you saw the third Sonic movie or not, but
Oh, yeah. I actually like the Sonic movies.
I also do too. And then therefore I can mention the spoiler. There is that moment where Jim Carrey like is playing both Gerald Robotnik and Dr. Robotnik, and then they break the fourth wall about, it's almost like we are it's almost like as if we're two different characters being played by the same actor in the same movie.
Yep.
and yeah, and that really caught me off guard. It's because in all of the previous Sonic movies that they never broke the fourth wall, and then along came that one, and
Right.
Yeah, I was so caught off guard by that.
Yeah, that is good.
But yeah, but I mean, considering that it is Jim Carrey, though, I mean, it does make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason they probably didn't do it in the first couple of ones is because he was only playing the single character. When you get, him playing two, that gives you the opportunity to do something really crazy.
Right, definitely. And yeah, and when they first announced on that Shadow like was going to be the main villain of the movie, I'm like, okay, they definitely are taking from Sonic Adventure 2, which then means that yeah, Gerald Robotnik was going to be in it. I honestly thought that they're going to cast someone else like as Gerald Robotnik, and yeah, and it caught me off guard about how Jim Carrey like was going to play them both. I'm like, okay, that's definitely something new for Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
considering that he's playing two characters in the same movie. And I mean, it definitely has been done before, like such as in the Nutty Professor.
Yep.
Like where
Are you talking the Eddie Murphy or the Jerry Lewis? Because technically both, because they both do it.
yeah, true, yeah. And yeah, so it definitely can be done, and I mean, it definitely will take a pretty talented actor for somebody to do that. But yeah, it definitely can be done.
Yeah. And you have heard the rumors that Jim Carrey might be the next Freddy Krueger.
I heard about that,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, in my own personal opinion, I actually can see it. I mean, considering that Jim Carrey definitely does have the talent. He definitely has that talent to change his voice, and he also has that talent with like the facial expressions that he can make, and so he definitely could do a very evil face.
Right. Yeah. And, it'd be interesting if it happens. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can see it, but it's just the only thing is, you know, I'm kind of skeptical if Jim Carrey would do it, considering that after he did Kick-Ass 2, that he didn't want to promote the movie because of how violent that it was. So,
Right.
excuse me. So I think that that could be something that could prevent Jim Carrey from doing it.
Yeah. And me personally, I would rather see some unknown, you know, try it, because inherently, my first thought, if I saw Jim Carrey in Freddy makeup, is I'm going to go back to Fire Marshal Bill, where he had the burn face, and he was, over the top comedic. And yeah, Freddy's got that comedic side to him, but you know, I can't see Fire Marshal Bill cleaving some, girl up and going, or whatever. So it'd be interesting to see, like I said.
Yeah, and yeah, and I believe it was the director of the third Nightmare on Elm Street who said that he would cast Jim Carrey, and it does make sense because he also did direct Jim Carrey like in The Mask. So
Yeah.
it definitely would make sense why that he would, why that he would think of Jim Carrey, especially considering that in that movie, that Jim Carrey was covered in makeup in that. He was covered in makeup like with the live action Grinch.
Yep.
So yeah, Jim Carrey definitely does have experience with makeup, but I do know that when he did the Grinch though, he hated the makeup for that. I mean, he hated it so much that somebody had to hire somebody like from the Navy. And this person from the Navy actually helps to like teach soldiers how to tolerate torture.
Right.
And
Like with
from what I heard, I
PTSD.
don't know how true this is, but originally Jim Carrey like was wearing contacts that covered his entire eye, and he hated that so much on that's why that they just had to edit his eyes in post.
Hmm.
I mean, considering that there are times where I wear contacts too, they don't cover my entire eye, but there can definitely be times where contact lenses cannot be the most comfortable. But to have it cover your entire eye, that would be
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah. I honestly, I've never tried to wear contacts in my life, and I don't ever want to try. Like right now, we're doing a haunt up at Tom Devlin's, and a lot of the characters have the contacts where it turns your iris white. And I'm just so happy that my character does not have to wear them because I would sit there and refuse to do it. I just don't ever even want to try it. I wear my reading glasses, I'm good, but for the most part, I don't need contacts, and I don't ever, ever, ever want to wear any. So,
And and I can definitely understand why you would feel that way because there have been times where if I wear my contact lenses for too long, it actually can start to give me a headache. I mean, it's a double-edged sword because I do understand the white contact lenses because there's just something about it
oh yeah,
that just really creeps you out.
yeah, no, it makes their characters look really cool, and they're all from the same family, so inherently they have this because of what's going on at the haunt and everything. Where I'm not part of the family, playing a minor, and so I don't have to worry about that. And one other thing, back in high school, I got hit with a paper wad in my eye and it actually cut my eyeball. And so that's why another reason why I don't ever want to think about trying to put a contact in there because, who knows, it may rip that thing open again. So
So with that about your eye, did you have to get a fake eye put in or what?
no, no, it just cut the white part. And, within, I had to wear eye patch, and within like a week or so, I was pretty much back to normal. Then it'd be once in a while, especially way back in the day. It hasn't happened in a long time, but I'd rub it or something, and it would kind of tear open again. And what I'd have to do is just lay down and basically go to sleep, just to let it kind of heal itself for a couple hours, and I'd be good to go again. But it was just a freak accident. It's like one of those, hey, somebody yelled it. I turned and the wad, was right up on me before I could even react, and boom, got me. So,
Well, I am definitely glad that it wasn't worse than what it could have been.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've had all kinds of weird stuff like that's happened throughout my life, so it's no big deal to me.
Well, I mean, just be thankful that you can keep your eye after that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because oh my God, just imagine how, imagine just how awful that would be if you actually lost your eye because of that.
yeah. But with my mentality, I'd end up doing something, like if I end up getting a fake eye, I'd sit there and pop it out all the time, like, hey, I'm keeping an eye out for you, that kind of stupid stuff. So, for example, right now, like I said, in the haunt, I'm playing a minor. And a couple of years ago, I had double mid-tarsal amputation. So my toes are cut off on both feet from a diabetic issue. And my spill in the haunted houses, when they come through my room, I'll sit there and say, do you know what the master did to me? And I'll sit there and I go, he cut my toes off, and I'll show him my little nub, and then I got a necklace with one, big toe on it. I go, I still got one left. So, most people would be really bummed out about having this issue, with their feet and everything, where it's never bothered me. And I'm actually using it as a prop in a haunted house and making a joke of it and, having a blast with it. And, people seem to like it. So,
Yeah, and if people are liking it, it definitely does show that something like is being done, right?
yeah, you know, and I'm not ashamed of it. And like I said, I'm doing it for some shock value. And it's actually the way I kind of do it. Because on top of all that, I'm sitting there playing the spoons and the washboard. So I'm sitting there, I'll do my little song and then do that shtick. And people are like either freaked out, laugh, or just sitting there and going, what the hell, man? And just, they continue on with their night. And I don't get to hear anything, but, I went out the other night after we were done. And, the rest of the castmates were like, oh my God, they were saying this about you and this about you. And I'm like, oh, cool. So again, having fun with it. So
Yeah, exactly. And what matters most is that you are having fun.
yeah, every movie that we've done, and the movie things are really good for me because I am not truly a big social person. So, but whenever I'm on set, I get to talk to people, again, with the hunt like that. A couple weeks ago, I went and did my first horror convention, and I have never been to a horror convention in my life because I don't like crowds. And I always said, well, the time that I can go sit behind a table and sign autographs, I'll go to a convention. Well, a couple weeks ago, that was possible, and I had a blast, and I finally went to a horror convention. So, and luckily it was also outside, so I didn't feel trapped or anything like that. And I went walking around, saw some of the other vendors and that kind of stuff. So it was a good time.
Yeah, and there's just, it's just when you sign an autograph for somebody, it's like that truly is one of like the most like humbling experiences that
Yeah,
you could ever experience. It's like when somebody asks you for your autograph, like that is one of the biggest compliments that you could ever get.
yeah. And, again, growing up, I grew up in Illinois in a small town, and, I never in my life thought I'd, be in a movie or anything. I'd studied cinema and photography in college, and I made a, movie whenever I was in college. And, you know, if anything, I thought, I'd be behind the camera, as a cameraman or something like that. But I never thought I'd truly be in front of the camera because I don't like having my picture taken usually, or, like we had a fire, near our house a couple months ago, and they wanted to interview me. I was like, no, I'm good. I don't like, I don't want to be interviewed for that. Well, my wife heard, and she's like, came running out. And of course, she wants to be interviewed and everything. And therefore, while I was on wrestling. This is old WCW wrestling because the wedding chapel I was working at, we had a wedding there that night. The next day was Valentine's Day, and I was on Good Morning America doing a wedding down on Fremont Street. And I'm just like, how is this possible? I keep getting on TV. I was actually sitting waiting for a couple one time out at the Valley of Fire, which is a state park here. And this car drove by, went back by, came back by again. And they sit there and go, we know you. And I'm like, huh? And they'd seen me on German TV, and they were from Germany. And they recognized me from, being on that TV spot. And I'm like, damn, I didn't even know I was on TV in Germany. So, it's insane. I've been in a book because, again, just doing weddings. So they take my picture, and it's a Las Vegas book. So, before the acting even started, I'd been on TV and, print several times. And so, now that I'm doing the movies, I'm a lot more open to, being photographed, talking to people. I've had no bad issues with anybody or anything like that.
So it sounds like that it was an experience that really helped you to step outside of your comfort zone then.
Yeah, yeah, it really has. I've gotten a lot more friendly, believe it or not, because I was not the friendliest cuss. Um, and when we first started doing Teddy, again, I have no training whatsoever as far as acting, and I was sitting there going, "Well, I've always heard of this method acting, you know, which is basically you stay in that character all the time." And for the first like week and a half, I kind of did that. And then afterwards, I sit there and go, this just, it's not really working for me. So at that point, I'd start talking to, when we had downtime, I'd start talking to any and everybody on set. And, I made a lot of friends through that. And like I said, that has really helped me. And, it's opened me up, and it's actually a good thing for me. And, I've told the director, Tom Devlin, this. I told him, man, this is really, opened me up and lets me be, a different person somewhat. I haven't completely changed. If I'm out in public, somebody makes me mad, that's not a good thing. But, on set, at the haunts, autograph signings, everything like that, I've had a blast.
So when you first signed your very first autograph, how exactly was that experience like for you?
Well, the first ones I really signed were we had a premiere at Las Vegas Horror Fest. No, I got that one wrong. Anyway, it was the world premiere of that one, and it just so happened that my best friend, his sister, their spouses, my brother, everybody was coming down for a birthday party, and it coincided with this. So they all, went to the world premiere. And some of the first autographs were like my brother, my best friend. It was friends and family. And so that was kind of weird, but not so much. And then, after I got done with them, then, other fans started coming up. And, there were people that I've never seen, I don't know. And I'm signing, and I was like, this is kind of neat, And I've had this signature for years that, inherently is great for doing an autograph because it's just, whoosh, this real quick squibble. And, so I would, usually sign it if they don't want, anything specific. I'll just, do quotation marks Teddy, then my name. Or if they want, signed to them and a message, I always ask, I go, how do you want the sign? And usually, people will tell me, oh, just sign it, or, and we'll go from there. And again, yeah, it's kind of a weird feeling, that people want that, but I'm more than happy to do it. You hear of celebrities who are complete dicks about, not wanting photographs taken with them or not wanting to sign an autograph. You know what? Unless there's something really weird going on that day, I will stop and do whatever, because, if you're nice to somebody, they're going to tell somebody, and more people are going to go watch, my movies. And that's the whole purpose of this, is just to get these movies out into the public so people watch them, Again, we don't have a huge budget. We don't have advertising, like I said, on TikTok, I am the advertising for it, and word of mouth. And, if you sit there and make somebody mad, they're going to tell everybody as well, which is not a good thing. So like I said, I've tried to be as kind and gracious as possible on this.
Yeah, which is definitely is a great approach about it, because there was, I'm not going to mention any names, but I've heard of a story about how a fan asked a particular person if they could sign an autograph for them, and then they said, "Oh, sorry, but I don't give autographs to ugly people." I'm like, ouch. Like,
Damn.
knowing that they wouldn't be where they're at if it wasn't like for their fans. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised as if they lost some fans because of that. I mean,
I'm sure.
yeah, like, talk about such a rude thing for somebody to say. And I mean, talk about just such a way to ruin that person's spirit.
Yeah. And, that's, you should not do that if you're a celebrity, a regular human, whatever, And I mean, I've been in arguments where stuff has been said, but, just being calm every day, I wouldn't sit there and go, oh, I'm not signing that because you're ugly. If you come up and you're a complete ass to me, that's when I'll sit there and go, I'm not signing that because you're an ass, you know.
Yeah.
But again, out of all the celebrities that I have dealt with, and I actually have dealt with quite a few before even getting into the acting thing through the weddings, I've only had one real bad experience with one actress, and I'm not going to name her, but you know, she just thought she was a prima donna and you know too good to be anywhere near a lowly working person. But everybody else has been absolutely great.
Well, there is the saying that goes, "What goes around comes around."
Yeah, and unfortunately, the coming around to her still hasn't happened because she's still doing work. So,
Yes.
yep.
But yeah, I mean, eventually karma definitely will catch up.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, I mean, it may take a while, but it eventually will.
Yep.
Exactly. So, anyways, well, that about does her. Is there any last final words that you would want to say to my audience?
Sure. I'd like for everybody to go watch Teddy Told Me To on Tubi. It's a horror comedy, and it's got quite a few recognizable stars that make cameos. There's Felissa Rose from Sleepaway Camp. Um, there's Lisa Wilcox from Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5. C.J. Graham, who was one of the Jasons in 6, I believe. There's also Trent Haga, who was in the Killjoy movies. And if you've never seen the Killjoy movies, go check them out. It's a killer clown way before art there.
Mhm.
Warrington Gillette, who was in, I want to say it was Friday the 13th Part 2, where he's unmasked, comes through the window. You got Papa Shango, who makes a cameo. And that's on Tubi. And then we've also done The After Dark, which is a punk rock vampire movie. And that one's got Gangrel from old WWE wrestling days. He's the star of that one. We've done Las Vegas Frankenstein. And again, all those are on Tubi. The Nameless, that one is kind of cool because that's the first time I ever die on screen. I play the dad of the killer in that one, and I get shot, so the back of my head blows out. And that one has not been released out to the public yet. And in the first part of November, we are having the world premiere of The Bloody Bluff, which is a period piece of a Bigfoot movie. And that one will be screening, I think, November 9th. And in that one, I get to play the town drunk, so I'm more or less the comic relief on that one. And yep, just go out, watch the movies, enjoy them, and if you like them, tell your friends and family. Because all I'm trying to do is just get the word out so people know about these movies, and go out and watch them.
Awesome. Well, all of those movies are definitely movies that I would love to see. And it's funny you mentioned CJ because I actually got to meet him. A few months ago, and so that was when that I purposely bought a machete. I purposely bought one at the pawn shop,
Yep.
and I got him to sign it for me, and he actually is going to be coming onto this podcast soon. And so and when I met CJ, he definitely is a really really cool guy.
Yeah. Yep. No, very nice guy. And like I said, all these actors that were in this movie, all super, nice and everything. And again, just, go out, watch the movies and enjoy them, especially for spooky season.
Exactly. You might as well should if it's the Halloween season.
Yep. Oh, and I do have one other little thing to show. This is one of the coolest things of having been in the movie. I got an action figure made of myself.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Because I swore I never thought I would get an action figure of me. I was like, oh my God, it's the coolest thing ever. So,
That is so awesome. Wow.
yeah.
I mean, not only are you having people asking for your autograph, but even having action figures made of you, like, wow.
Well, yeah.
You should feel proud.
And Terror Threads has Teddy Told Me t-shirts. And if you go to Plantain Pictures, which is the company behind all these, you can obviously order the DVDs. I think you can get the action figure. They've got a t-shirt as well. So there's actually some merchandise for this movie, considering, like I said, there is no budget whatsoever. um, honestly, I have no true idea how much this movie cost to make, but Tom Devlin was a special effects makeup artist forever. And so that's, how the effects in the movie were made. He did all of them, him and his crew. And everything in every single movie that we've done is all practical effects. There is no CGI whatsoever. And a lot of people really like that because they like the old fashioned, practical. They don't like the new CGIs. And I agree a lot with that. So,
Oh yeah.
yep.
Yeah, and I mean, even going back to those Godzilla movies that
Yeah.
we were talking about, just knowing that there actually was something there in front of the camera, it's hard to pinpoint it exactly, but it just has that certain charm. It just has that certain look to it, knowing that it's actually in front of the camera and
Yeah.
that there's no CGI to try to tamper with its lighting and all that, knowing it's actually there.
Yeah. It's a guy in a rubber suit stomping on little tiny buildings. Yeah. You remember the movie Better Off Dead with John Cusack? And
Yep.
Bobcat Goldthwait gets into the Godzilla suit and he goes stomping through the lobster mock-up of the restaurant. You know, again, that's how they did the Godzilla movies. They showed a live shot, and real people watching this. But a lot of people who aren't really into the Godzillas, they don't know how they did it. And that's it. Anytime somebody flew, they were wire hung. You know, and again, it was just all CGI except for the breath. And when he breathed the atomic breath, or somebody'd have the laser beams or Baragon, with the rainbow effect coming out of his back was, some kind of a drawing, a cartoon added on after, post production. So, but again, it was still hand done.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, if you just, if you could send me a link, as to where people, could buy the action figures, I definitely would greatly appreciate that. And yeah, and as soon as this episode's up, I could definitely can share that link.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll just email you the information and go from there. Is that okay?
Yeah. Awesome. Possum.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. And again, everybody just go watch Teddy Told Me To on Tubi and enjoy.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.